Next to Gagarin's childhood home is a very famous well. Its waters, some say, has the power to make people brave. And to this very day, astronauts and cosmonauts the world over come here for good luck. The town where he spent much of his childhood was renamed Gagarin. On Gagarin Street, we meet Gagarin's niece, who was 14 at the time.
When I was told that everything went well and he landed safely, I was overjoyed. Cosmonauts, scientists, medics, builders, our whole country worked to send Yuri into space.
Gagarin's humble background helped secure his ticket to space. The Soviets eager to show that under communism the son of a worker could succeed. Worried the US might win the space race, Sergei Korolyov, the USSR's chief space scientist, pushed for an immediate launch. And so, 27-year-old Gagarin rocketed to stardom. Little was known about how close the mission came to disaster. There were a series of malfunctions. For the Soviets, the 108-minute flight was a propaganda coup. Today's Star City remains the home of Russia's space program. But now manned missions are international. At face value, the equipment is far from state-of-the-art. Still, where America's shuttle program has stalled, Russia's remains cost-effective.
The Russians do enough to get their job done. In America, my take is that we over-engineer it and we put too many requirements on our tasks. And so we are very, very expensive within the NASA government contractor structure. What you see around here is what's necessary to go into space.
But the Americans may still gain the upper hand. Private US companies are building spacecraft to get astronauts into orbit, while NASA focuses on much bigger projects. Russia's space program, dogged by a string of failed satellite launches, needs all the money it can get. The hope is more competition will drive down costs, bringing space travel a step closer to the rest of mankind. Neave Barker, Al Jazeera, Star City.
Well, Francis French is the Director of Education at the San Diego Air and Space Museum. He's also written a book about early space exploration and joins me now from San Diego. Nice to have you on the programme, Francis. I mean, the Gagarin anniversary to itself has allowed Russia and Moscow to celebrate. But before we look ahead to the future, what was the impact, really, that flight made in terms of the space race?
It was an absolute global impact, not only for technology and for the Russian space program, but also in terms of propaganda. This was something that the Soviet Union, which by many in the West was considered a backward technological country, proved that it was a world player and a stage that it hasn't really given up ever since. Ever since then, it has been considered a technological forerunner in many ways.
In lots of ways as well, politics has played as much a role as technology in the way that space research has progressed and moved on. I mean, the fall of the Soviet Union, in fact, has led to a much closer working relationship between the United States and Russia. Would you say that's been very positive in lots of ways? What are the negative elements of that?
Oh, very much so, a positive thing. 50 years ago, we saw Yuri Gagarin launched into space on a rocket that was designed to carry a nuclear missile to America and destroy parts of America. Today, we see Russians and Americans in space aboard the space station right now, celebrating that 50th anniversary on a space station that they and other international partners jointly constructed. So the overall picture in the last 50 years has been an incredibly positive, cooperative one.
In our report, Neave was talking about the fact that, funding is a big issue really for the United States, as it is for Russia in how space development will proceed. The shuttle program is about to be shelved very shortly. I mean, how do you see the next stage of space development, and where should we be looking to in terms of that development?
Well, there's a common phrase in the space business, no bucks, no Buck Rogers, and it's true. These things do cost a lot of money, and it is something that people have to decide what priorities are. The trouble is, if we never push ahead with space, there are always going to be priorities down on the ground which may take more pressing concern. My hope is, as a planet, we can do all of it, and the next stage is really for private industry to jump in, which is what President Obama and the head of NASA right now are looking to do. It's a little like the analogy with the aircraft. If you imagine 100 years after the dawn of aviation that every government owned every airplane that flew, we would not have airlines. So we're kind of in that stage now where private industry needs to step up and build rockets that allow us easy, economical access to low Earth orbit and that space station.
But what is left to discover then if we still want to go into space?
Well, we have not been more than 3 days away from Earth. We've been 250,000 miles away from Earth to the Moon. The Moon, in terms of space, is not very far. I can stand in my back garden and see individual craters with the naked eye, as can you, from anywhere in the world. It's not very far at all. It takes years sometimes to get to other planets. So we've made that first baby step. We've put our toe in the water of the ocean. We really need to start exploring that ocean. And sometimes it's not a case of whether we should do it, but what does it mean for us as a species if we don't do it? What does it mean if we have the technology and we turn our back on it? And there are practical reasons too. An asteroid could be out there that could hit the planet and could severely damage the possibility of human life surviving here. We have the technology to be able to combat something like that. If we don't learn how to do it and we go extinct because of that, what will that say about us as a species?
Well, what will it say? Well, perhaps the debate will continue. For the moment, though, Francis French, thanks very much for joining us from San Diego.